The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie twilight over the small town of Crescent Valley. Every summer, the residents eagerly awaited the arrival of the traveling carnival, a tradition that had persisted for decades. The air would buzz with excitement as rides were erected, tents were pitched, and the smell of cotton candy and popcorn wafted through the streets. This year, however, something felt different. Emily and her friends, Jake, Lisa, and Tom, were thrilled. They had just graduated high school, and this would be their last summer together before heading off to different colleges. The carnival seemed like the perfect way to celebrate. As they approached the entrance, they noticed a new attraction, the Carnival of Shadows. "Looks creepy," Jake said, eyeing the black and crimson tent with curiosity. A sign above the entrance read, "Enter if you dare, no refunds." "Let's check it out," Emily suggested, her adventurous spirit shining through. They bought their tickets and stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, with only flickering lanterns casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Strange, distorted music played softly in the background, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. The first room they entered was filled with funhouse mirrors. At first they laughed at their distorted reflections, but soon the laughter turned to confusion. The reflections began to change, not just in shape, but in behavior. Emily's reflection grinned malevolently and started to move independently. Jake's reflection stared back with hollow eyes, and Lisa's reflection seemed to whisper silently to her. Tom, who had wandered off, suddenly screamed. The group rushed to find him staring at a mirror that showed not his reflection, but a scene of him lying lifeless on the ground, surrounded by shadows. "We need to get out of here," Tom stammered, pale with fear. They hurried into the next room, a maze of dark corridors. The air grew colder, and the walls seemed to pulse and breathe. Faint whispers echoed around them, speaking in languages they couldn't understand. As they navigated the maze, they realized they were not alone. Shadowy figures flitted just out of sight, their eyes glowing with a sinister light. Panic set in as they tried to find their way out. Every turn led them deeper into the maze. The shadows grew bolder, sometimes brushing against them with a chill that seeped into their bones. At one point, Lisa felt a cold hand grip her ankle, causing her to trip and fall. When she looked up, a shadowy face loomed inches from hers, its mouth opening in a silent scream. Finally, they burst into a large central chamber, hoping it was the exit. Instead, they found a sinister ringmaster standing in the center, dressed in a tattered top hat and coat, his eyes glowing red. "Welcome, my guests," he purred. "You've made it to the heart of the Carnival of Shadows." "Let us out!" Jake demanded, his voice trembling. The ringmaster chuckled. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. You see, the carnival feeds on fear, and you have provided a feast. But don't worry, you will become part of the show, forever." With a wave of his hand, the shadows closed in. Emily felt an overwhelming coldness, and her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was the ringmaster's cruel smile as darkness engulfed her. When she awoke, she found herself in another mirror maze, but this time she was alone. The reflections were gone, replaced by darkness. She wandered through the maze, calling out for her friends, but the only response was the echo of her own voice. Hours, or perhaps days, passed. Emily couldn't tell. Time seemed to have no meaning in the carnival. She stumbled upon a mirror that showed a glimpse of the outside world. People were laughing, enjoying the rides, completely unaware of the horrors within the Carnival of Shadows. Desperate, she pounded on the glass, screaming for help, but no one could hear her. The mirror shattered, and the ringmaster's voice echoed through the void. "Welcome to the Carnival of Shadows, Emily. Enjoy your stay." Outside, the carnival continued its cheerful facade, oblivious to the fate of those trapped within. The black and crimson tent stood as a silent sentinel, waiting for the next group of curious souls to enter, lured by the promise of thrills and chills, never knowing that they would never return. And so, the Carnival of Shadows continued to travel from town to town, feeding on the fear of the unwary, growing stronger with each victim. Emily, Jake, Lisa, and Tom became part of its eternal show, their screams of terror adding to the sinister symphony that played endlessly within the cursed tent. The summer carnival had returned to the quiet town of Brooksville, much to the delight of its residents. Children dragged their parents to the rides, teenagers gathered in groups to enjoy the attractions, and the smell of fried food filled the air. Among the myriad of rides, one stood out, the Nightcrawler, a new roller coaster that promised the ultimate thrill. Mark, Sarah, and their friends Mike and Jenny were drawn to it immediately. They were adrenaline junkies, always seeking the next big rush. The Nightcrawler's towering loops and steep drops were irresistible. They approached the ride, noticing the odd way the structure seemed to blend into the night, its dark steel tracks almost invisible against the sky. As they waited in line, they overheard whispers from other carnival goers. "I heard it's cursed," one person said. "They say it was built on the site of an old graveyard," another added. Mark brushed it off with a laugh. "Just rumors to scare us," he said, though he couldn't shake a growing unease. Their turn came, and they strapped into the sleek black cars. The ride operator, a tall, gaunt man with sunken eyes, gave them a slow, unsettling smile. "Enjoy the ride," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The cars lurched forward, climbing the first hill. As they reached the peak, the town spread out below them, bathed in the soft glow of carnival lights. Then, the drop. Their stomachs flipped as they plummeted down the track. Twists, turns, and loops came in rapid succession, each more intense than the last. But as they raced through the ride, strange things began to happen. The temperature dropped sharply, and an unnatural fog enveloped the track. Mark glanced at Sarah, her face pale with fear, not excitement. The coaster plunged into a tunnel, and everything went dark. In the pitch black, they could hear whispers, unintelligible but filled with malice. Mark felt something cold brush against his arm like a hand. The darkness was suffocating, pressing in on them from all sides. Then, without warning, they emerged from the tunnel, the lights of the carnival blinding in their intensity. They breathed a collective sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. The track ahead was different, twisting in impossible angles. The ride became rougher, more violent. Jenny screamed as the car seemed to lift off the track, only to slam back down. Mark tried to hold on, but his grip was slipping. Suddenly, they found themselves at the top of a hill, looking down into what seemed like a bottomless pit. The car hesitated, then plunged downward. The sensation was unlike any freefall they had experienced. It felt endless, as if they were falling through layers of reality. The whispers returned, louder and clearer now. "Join us," they said. "Stay with us forever." They landed with a jolt, the car skidding to a stop. They were back at the loading platform, but something was wrong. The carnival lights were dim, and the once cheerful music played at a distorted, sinister pitch. The ride operator was gone, replaced by a shadowy figure with hollow eyes. The friends stumbled out, shaken and disoriented. "We need to get out of here," Sarah said, her voice trembling. They made their way to the exit, but the path seemed to stretch endlessly before them. The carnival around them had changed. The vibrant colors were now muted and dull, and the faces of the people were twisted with fear and pain. They finally reached the edge of the carnival, only to find it surrounded by an impenetrable wall of fog. They were trapped. The whispers followed them, growing louder. "Stay with us," they urged. Mark realized with horror that the Nightcrawler had not just been a ride. It was a gateway. They had crossed into another realm, one where the carnival was a prison, and they were its latest captives. Desperation set in as they tried to find a way out, but every path led them back to the Nightcrawler. The ride stood ominously, its entrance beckoning them to ride again. "We have to try," Mike said, though his voice wavered with fear. They climbed back into the cars, hoping that another ride would return them to their world. The coaster jerked forward, and they braced themselves. As they sped through the ride, the whispers became screams, and the shadows reached out with the grasping hands. The ride was longer this time, the darkness more oppressive. They clung to each other, fighting to stay together. Emerging from the final tunnel, they found themselves back at the platform. The ride operator, or what looked like him, stood waiting. "Welcome back," he said, his smile revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Your journey has just begun." Realization dawned on Mark. They were not escaping. They were part of the carnival now, forever doomed to ride the Nightcrawler, trapped in an endless loop of terror. The carnival fed on their fear, growing stronger with each scream, and so the carnival remained, a beacon of joy and thrills by day, but a nightmare by night. The Nightcrawler stood as its dark heart, waiting for the next group of unsuspecting souls to take their last ride. Weeks later, new visitors arrived at the carnival, drawn by the allure of the Nightcrawler. They heard the same whispers of curses and haunted grounds, but like Mark and his friends, they shrugged them off as mere stories. As they strapped in and the ride began, the sun set, casting long shadows over the carnival. The Nightcrawler roared to life, ready to claim its next victims, and the whispers began anew, promising an unforgettable ride. The carnival thrived, its sinister secret hidden behind the laughter and lights. And somewhere within, Mark, Sarah, Mike, and Jenny rode the Nightcrawler, their screams echoing through the night, part of the carnival's eternal show. Every summer, the quaint town of Willowbrook was transformed by the arrival of the Brightwood Carnival. Known for its spectacular performances and vibrant atmosphere, the carnival was a highlight for residents young and old. This year, a new attraction promised to dazzle and mystify: the Marionette's dance. Alex, Maria, Ethan, and Chloe were excited. The four friends had been attending the carnival together since they were kids, and they were eager to see what the new attraction had to offer. The marquee outside the tent was adorned with ornate, old-fashioned designs, and the entrance was flanked by life-sized marionettes, their painted faces frozen in eerie, welcoming smiles. Inside, the tent was dimly lit, with rows of seats facing a small stage. They took their seats, the air buzzing with anticipation. The lights dimmed further, and a hush fell over the crowd as the show began. A single spotlight illuminated the stage, revealing an old man dressed in a tattered suit, his eyes hidden beneath the brim of a worn top hat. "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen," he croaked. "Tonight, you will witness the enchanting performance of the Marionette's dance, a spectacle of wonder, a marvel of magic." With a flourish, he pulled back a curtain to reveal a dozen marionettes hanging from the ceiling. The strings glistened in the low light, and the wooden figures, dressed in elaborate costumes, seemed almost lifelike. The old man began to play a haunting melody on a violin, and the marionettes sprang to life, their movements perfectly synchronized with the music. The audience watched in awe as the marionettes performed intricate dances, their limbs moving with an unsettling grace. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. There was something disturbingly human about their movements. Maria nudged him, her eyes wide with excitement. "This is amazing," she whispered. As the performance continued, the atmosphere grew darker. The music became more discordant, and the marionettes' movements more frantic. The old man's playing was almost feverish, and his eyes, now visible, glowed with an unnatural light. The audience was entranced, unable to look away. Suddenly, the music stopped, and the marionettes froze. The old man stepped forward, his voice low and sinister. "But the true magic of the Marionette's dance," he said, "is yet to come." With a snap of his fingers, the marionettes began to move again, but this time they were not performing a dance. Instead, they moved towards the audience, their wooden faces twisted into expressions of malevolence. The audience gasped as the marionettes descended from the stage, their strings stretching impossibly long. Alex and his friends watched in horror as the marionettes approached. The old man laughed, a sound that sent shivers through the tent. "You see," he said, "my marionettes need new souls to dance." Before they could react, the marionettes were upon them. One grabbed Alex's arm with surprising strength, its wooden fingers digging into his flesh. He tried to pull away, but the grip was unyielding. He looked at Maria, who was struggling against another marionette. Ethan and Chloe were similarly trapped. The old man raised his violin and began to play again, the haunting melody filling the tent. The marionettes started to dance, dragging their victims with them. Alex felt his body move against his will, his limbs jerking in time with the music. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. As the dance continued, Alex felt a strange sensation wash over him. His movements became smoother, more fluid, but he also felt a cold, wooden rigidity creeping through his body. He looked down in horror as his skin began to harden and crack, transforming into polished wood. The old man's eyes gleamed as he watched the transformation. "You are becoming one with the marionette's dance," he said, his voice filled with dark satisfaction. "Soon you will join my collection, and the dance will continue." Desperation and fear surged through Alex, but it was too late. The transformation was complete. He could no longer feel his body. He was a marionette, suspended by invisible strings, his soul trapped within the wooden shell. He could see and hear everything, but he was powerless to move of his own accord. The old man lowered his violin and the music stopped. The new marionettes, including Alex, Maria, Ethan, and Chloe, stood motionless on the stage. The old man bowed to the audience, who were now all marionettes themselves, trapped in the same fate. "Thank you for attending the marionette's dance," he said, his voice echoing through the silent tent. "The show will continue, as it always has, with new performers and new souls." The lights dimmed and the old man disappeared behind the curtain. The tent was plunged into darkness, but for Alex and his friends, the nightmare was far from over. They were part of the show now, forever bound to the marionette's dance, their souls imprisoned in wooden bodies, doomed to perform for eternity. As the carnival moved to a new town, the tent of the marionette's dance stood as a silent sentinel, waiting for new visitors. The old man, with his violin and his collection of marionettes, would perform the same sinister show, ensnaring new souls with each performance. And so the legend of the marionette's curse continued, a dark secret hidden behind the bright lights and joyful laughter of the Brightwood Carnival. Each summer, unsuspecting souls would be drawn to the enchanting performance, never realizing that they would become part of the eternal dance, their cries for help unheard, their pleas for mercy ignored, as the show went on and on.